Divisiveness is all around us, and most of it is beyond our control. Most of it is well outside of us. And even those little bits and pieces of it that might feel as if they're within our control, they probably don't make much difference. What is within our control, however, is our internal experience of divisiveness, of all this divisiveness that's going on outside of us, whether it has to do with politics or race or socioeconomics or religion, whatever the source is. We each have an internal experience of what's going on externally. And it's our internal experience, our attitudes about what's happening out there, and eventually our responses that matter, that we really do have some influence and control over. My intention in offering this series this week is to create the conditions that will support your understanding of what divisiveness is all about, how it works as a human phenomenon, and how it shows up in you, and to enhance your capacity to shape your internal experiences of divisiveness. Understanding internal experiences, your capacity to have them. And a little bit later, we'll give you an opportunity to really focus on the intention that you want to hold for this experience, both for this week and for dealing with divisiveness on an ongoing basis. Whenever the headlines, the news headlines and stories show up, and they show up in a way that just doesn't suit me, that I don't agree with, that I find offensive, that I don't like, that I find separate, myself being separate from. There's a way in which I'm feeling threatened. Whenever we hear that which is different from what our internal storyline narrative is, we have a tendency to feel threatened. Those are our protective energies. That's our brains showing their bias of being Velcro for the negative and Teflon for the positive. So when I pay attention to what's going on inside me, when I'm listening to somebody or reading something that I don't agree with, that doesn't align with the way that I think and feel, I can notice there's righteous indignation, anger, sometimes even contempt. Who is this person? Who do they think they are, speaking like that, writing like this? They must be really, really stupid. They must be mean. That's what I mean by contempt, holding those kinds of aggressive, negative emotions. And sometimes there's a lot of fear that shows up inside me. It's so easy when we're afraid to fall into what ifing. What if this happens? What if that happens? And we all know, as Mike Groh mentioned yesterday morning, that so much of what we can imagine, of all of these thoughts, all these possibilities, these ifs that rip into our brains, very few of them ever happen. And it turns out we almost always have enough resources to deal with whatever it is that's happening. I mean, when we look back over our lives and we think of all the difficult things that we've dealt with, we realize that we really do have the capacity, we have the resources. Another emotion feeling that creeps in for me is doubt. I begin to doubt myself. I doubt others in my community. I begin to wonder about the nation. I wonder about humanity. My confidence is undermined. So what shows up in me when there's external divisiveness, when I'm feeling separate, is some combination of fear, anger, and doubt. Leaves me feeling vulnerable. It leaves me feeling separate, alienated. And there's this tendency to engage in othering. Othering is a rather crude term for how we tend to separate ourselves from that which we don't like by saying, oh, that's just somebody else. That's another person. We tend to demonize, if we go far enough, the other. Oh, that's a terrible person. That's a terrible point of view. It's so easy to fall into that. So when I begin to notice, have some awareness that I'm caught up in anger, fear, doubt, and othering, I realize that this is a fork in the road for me. It's a fork in the road for any of us. I can either end up getting lost, being totally succumbing to how desire turns into grasping and greed, how aversion turns into fear, perhaps hatred, and how not knowing turns into delusion. And I can feel very small and constricted, unhappy, and feeling a sense of separateness that really undermines my overall well-being. All of us have had that feeling. All of us know the difference between what it means to be alone and what it means to be lonely, what it means to feel left behind and left out. So I could end up in that place, or I can use my awareness to create a little space. And instead of desire becoming grasping, it can become aspiration. Instead of aversion becoming fear, it can become an understanding of what's going on around me, what's going on inside me. And instead of not knowing becoming delusion, it can become curiosity. What are the possibilities here? What is it that's going on with this other person that would prompt that person to say things that seem so offensive to me, that would prompt that person to engage in behaviors that are harmful to others? Engaging in that understanding, that curiosity. And instead of ending up feeling constricted and separate, I can end up with a sense of freedom, ease, and very importantly, belonging. So as we go through this week, we're beginning this conversation about divisiveness with understanding how it shows up inside us and how much that can be about feeling separate, left out. As we go through the week, we'll be shifting our orientation toward how can we cultivate the capacity to belong, to stay connected, to hold on to our capacity for kindness regardless, so that we move in a way that's skillful and not harmful. So let's take a few moments now and make a few notes about your own experiences with divisiveness. How is all of this external divisiveness showing up in you? Your experiences are going to be different from mine. Maybe there was something familiar in what I said, but each of us has our own unique experiences. And let's spend a few moments tuning into how divisiveness shows up in you. And as you're in this experience of noting how divisiveness shows up in you, you might take a moment and tune in a little bit more internally and notice where it's showing up in your body. How is divisiveness showing up in my body in this moment as I'm having these thoughts? So following on the format or title that I used when we did that exploration around racism, the full title that I've given to this series this week is An Exploration of Waking Up to Divisiveness. The phrase waking up is a very, and not too subtle, nod to mindfulness and awareness. Waking up, awareness. So this is about understanding how divisiveness shows up in me and its consequences. The consequences for me of how divisiveness shows up in me. And to pay attention to those consequences and see whether they're more likely to lead to suffering, discontent, and discomfort, or they're more likely to lead to freedom and ease and peace. Recalling that the underlying purpose, focus of mindfulness practice is about using our awareness to point us in the direction of a greater sense of freedom and ease and internal peace, regardless of what's happening externally, taking us to that place internally, where we can be more skillful in our choices about what thoughts we have, what words we speak, and what actions we take. Let's do a practice. Gathering our attention in this space, in this moment. Settling in, finding just a little bit of ease. Taking a couple of deep in-breaths, filling the lungs from the bottom up, all the way up to the shoulders, and holding it for a moment. And now a long, slow out-breath, letting go of the likely tension that's arisen from so much mental focus and thinking. And again, soft belly, filling the lungs with air from the bottom all the way to the top. And holding for a moment and letting go. Feeling that tension flow out of the body. And softening. Allowing the muscles throughout the face to soften. Allowing the jaw to be slightly at ease. Dropping the shoulders just a little bit more. And turning our attention to our breathing. Simply riding the flow of the in-breath and the out-breath. Feeling just an ounce more of ease with each out-breath. Here are a few words for you to notice your internal reactions to. Divisiveness. Politics. Racial justice. Noticing whatever thoughts and emotions are arising. Perhaps repeating the words to yourself as you continue to notice what arises inside you. And what sensations, physical sensations, are accompanying these thoughts and emotions as we react to words like politics, divisiveness, racial injustice. And noticing how you are relating to whatever's arising. What is your attitude about what's arising inside you? Is there judgment? Curiosity? Acceptance? Patience? And staying with this experience, whatever it is, resting with it. Being fully present to whatever is happening. And letting go and coming back to the breathing. Just gently turning your attention to your breathing as you let go of the prior experience. And now bringing to mind a good friend. Holding the image of your good friend right in front of you. And being aware of how this good friend struggles in life. What's difficult for this person? Allowing that struggle to touch your heart. And extending some kindness. And continuing to hold the image of this good friend. What brings joy to this person? and feeling a sense of appreciation inside yourself for this person's joy and happiness. And letting go of this person, this good friend, and simply imagining looking in the mirror and seeing yourself. And recalling one of the ways that you've been struggling recently. Allowing your heart to be touched. Extending some kindness to yourself. And recalling a pleasant experience, something that's made you happy, given you some joy recently. Allowing yourself to feel appreciation for that. And letting go of this image of yourself, now bringing to mind a person in your life about whom you feel rather neutral. Not strong feelings one way or the other. Somebody not too close to you, perhaps even a little distant. And becoming aware of some of the ways that this person might struggle in life. And allowing your heart to be touched.